Hi, everybody. I hope you had a great first week of the semester and are at least trying to start your reading of A Raisin in the Sun. The end of this week, you were supposed to have read through Act 1, Scene 1 of A Raisin in the Sun, but I understand that maybe it was difficult to get through everything. So if you haven't gotten to that point, you should be catching up because coming up in the next week, starting tomorrow, Monday the 31st, we'll be reading the next two segments, as you see on the calendar, of A Raisin in the Sun. So, for just a few minutes, I wanted to go over week one on Blackboard and what you should have looked at and what you'll be having a quiz over and journal entries as the week goes on this week. The first thing I posted in week one's section was a PowerPoint on reading and understanding drama. So, the definition of drama, how we understand realism in plays, the Aristotelian six traditions of drama, Freytag's pyramid, different literary elements involved in drama, such as plot, theme, and symbol. All of those are covered in the PowerPoint. Then the next thing I posted was a short 6-minute video that really is centered on the idea of theme and what theme is, although it does talk a little bit about plot and symbol too. So it's a cute little video. Those of you who are Star Wars aficionados will enjoy it. Those of you who aren't, I think, will like it too, because it breaks down the idea of theme with relation to the Star Wars universe. And so we can understand theme as a literary element in many different genres, not just drama. Then the next document I posted was an introduction to the play. So it gave a little bit of Lorraine Hansberry's biography, an introduction to the play itself, including the dates and the awards that it won, a little bit about its background and history, and then, of course, a brief summary of the play and a list of the main characters and who they are so that you can sort them out. And then the final thing I attached for this week is a brief plot summary and questions to ponder from Act 1, Scene 1. And if we were in class together in a face-to-face class, we'd be discussing these questions. And these are questions of the type that I would ask you to write about in a journal or in your paper, or formulate them in some way into a multiple choice question for a quiz or for the final exam. So what I'm going to do here for a few minutes is next introduce you to the play, what I think is important about it, what it's about, and then go through some of the important quotes that I think come from Act 1, Scene 1. I am going to give page numbers, so if you don't have your book, I'm afraid you'll just have to look throughout the scene for these quotes. I will tell you who said it, so that way it'll be easier for you. And that way these quotes can help you understand a little bit more about the characters. So this play, A Raisin in the Sun, if you read the introduction, you'll know it was published in 1959. So it was published before the real beginning of the civil rights movement in America. It had started, the rumblings of it and the foundations of it were there. But marches in the street and MLK's I Have a Dream speech and the Civil Rights Act, all of that had not been passed or occurred yet in America. We are, though, 5 years past the seminal case Brown versus Board of Education, which desegregated public schools. Although, as you know from history, that desegregation was not without tension and conflict. So that's the setting we have. Lorraine Hansberry, of course, as you see, is an African-American woman who is writing this play about a poor African-American family living in an apartment in Chicago with menial labor jobs, but very hardworking, blue-collar type jobs, who receive an insurance check. They have not received it yet at this point in the play, but they will. I mean, I'm not giving anything away to tell you that they will get the check. The check is for $10,000, which someone in a previous class of mine looked up once and said that was equivalent to about $300,000 or $400,000 in today's money. So that was a lot of money for them to receive. Big Walter is sort of in the background of the play. Big Walter, meaning the patriarch of the family, the father who died, and his life insurance check of $10,000 is what they're receiving. And this first part of the play, Act 1, Scene 1, they all sort of discuss what they want to do with it. They're dreaming about this money and how it will help their family. The play as a whole is about race and poverty. It's also about Black and white tension and conflict. We'll see that later in the play. That has not come up yet, but it will. It's about love. It's about relationships. It's about mother-daughter dynamics, father-daughter dynamics. It's about the American dream, which is to have a little house of your own that you own with the white picket fence and a little garden and money to be able to live in that home easily. And so all of these ideas intersect as the play goes on, and we'll see how deeply we get into that. But it's a very realistic play about these issues coming from the perspective of an African American woman who didn't quite experience them herself, because she, Lorraine Hansberry, the author, grew up in a fairly well-to-do Chicago family. Her father was politically active. He had a good job. They were in the upper echelons of the Black Chicago community. But she is using some of her own biographical information, as you read about in the introduction, concerning their moving into the house. So let's get in a little bit into Act 1, Scene 1. We're introduced in the first couple of pages to how the house is set up and how it looks. I wouldn't say house, it's an apartment. It's a pretty dark apartment. The furnishings are worn. The author, even in the italicized stage notes at the beginning and the stage directions and telling us what it looks like, personifies the furnishings. She writes, "Its furnishings are typical and undistinguished, and their primary feature now is that they have clearly had to accommodate the living of too many people for too many years, and they are tired." So we know they haven't been able to change their furniture. They scrub the house as best they can, but it has roaches, we come to find out later. And they don't have a bathroom. They have to share a bathroom. Travis, the young boy of the family, does not have his own bed. He has to sleep on a pull-out couch every night. Mama and Beneatha share a room. There are 2 bedrooms. And Walter, of course, and his wife Ruth, they share a bedroom. So we get a sense of their living conditions and situations. The scene opens with Walter and Ruth waking up on a Friday morning. And we know everybody has to get ready for their day, but they are talking about the check. And if you watch, and I'm hoping that you watch at least some segments of this play that you can find on YouTube, you can find the entire play on YouTube in movie version with Sean P. Diddy Combs as Walter. And I will post some of those scenes later because we'll be working on this play for the next couple of weeks. Anyway, there is some humor, but there's also some seriousness too. Ruth and Walter are talking a little bit, and Travis wakes up, and then on page 503, we get the sense that Walter is showing off for his son. He wants to be the man of the family. Pride is a huge issue in his head. And that is another one of the themes. The pride of all of these characters and who they are. They're grounded in themselves, but they're also searching for themselves at the same time. That's how I see it. And so where Walter, he hands the boy the 50 cents for the school project that his teacher had said that they had to have. And Ruth had earlier told him they didn't have the money for it. All he had was enough for milk money. And Walter says, in fact, here's another 50 cents. buy yourself some fruit today or take a taxi cab to school or something. And he's staring hard at his wife. Ruth is watching them both with murder in her eyes. So you see that even through the seriousness of this, we understand that they're having a really hard time financially. And Walter wants this money to help their family. But there's still a little bit of love and a little bit of humor and a little bit of that lightheartedness underneath all of this. So Travis, he goes off to school. Ruth and Walter go back and they continue their argument. And they are arguing about the differences in their personalities. Ruth is realistic. Walter is idealistic. And on the top of page 504, Walter says, I'm thinking about what me and Willie Harris was talking about last night. And Ruth says, Willie Harris is a good-for-nothing loudmouth. And Walter says, anybody who talks to me has got to be a good-for-nothing loudmouth, ain't he? And what you know about who is just a good-for-nothing loudmouth. So we get a brief introduction to who Willie Harris is and what Walter's dream is. His dream is to open a liquor store with Willie and another character named Bobo. They're going to be very minor characters in the play, but Ruth does not want that to happen. Ruth doesn't want this life insurance check to go to something that's going to continue to denigrate the Black community, as well as something that'll take up the entire check and may actually not even be helpful to them if the liquor store doesn't work. At the bottom of 504, you see this little liquor store we got in mind cost $75,000, and we figured the initial investment on the place be about $30,000. See, that'd be $10,000 each. So that would be the entire check toward the liquor store. In the middle of page 505, Ruth says to Walter, Walter, that ain't none of our money. And Walter comes back by saying, I'm 35 years old, I've been married 11 years, and I got a boy who sleeps in the living room. And all I got to give him is stories about how rich white people live. And Ruth's response is, eat your eggs, Walter. Of course, Walter slams back and says, damn my eggs, damn all the eggs that ever was. She's practical, he's a dreamer. So we get this sense of what Walter and Ruth are going through. Benitha then enters. Benitha is the sister of Walter, and Benitha is much younger. There's about a 10-year age gap between them. Benitha, or even 15 years. Benitha is about 20 and Walter is 35. Benitha is in college, and she lives at home, but she's going to college. And we find out that Benitha wants to go to medical school. She says, and she understands, like Ruth, that the money belongs to Mama. It is her dad's life insurance that was left to her mother. But she also knows that her dream is to continue on from college into med school, and that money would put a huge dent in the medical school bills. On page 507, Benitha says, that money belongs to Mama, Walter, and it's for her to decide how she wants to use it. I don't care if she wants to buy a house or a rocket ship or just nail it up somewhere and look at it. And Walter says, now ain't that fine? You just got your mother's interest at heart, ain't you, girl? You're such a nice girl. But if Mama got that money, she can always take a few thousand and help you through school too, can't she? And so we got the idea that Walter is jealous, at least a little bit, of the idea that Benny is in school and he's not. And he also understands, as does Benitha, that they've all made sacrifices for her and for her education. Right in the middle of page 507, Walter says, stop acting holy round me. Me and Ruth done made some sacrifices for you. And Benitha is still young, of course. She knows that they've made sacrifices, but it is her brother after all. So she's going to argue right back and say, of course you've made sacrifices, but I want to be a doctor. I don't want to just be a nurse, as at the bottom of page 507, Walter suggests. So at this point, Later in the act, or in the scene, sorry, Walter exits, presumably to go off to work. He's a chauffeur. He drives rich white people for a living. And then Mama enters. We get a sense of who Mama is on page 508. She's a woman in her early 60s. She's adjusted to things in life and overcome many more. Her face is full of strength. She has, we can see, wit and faith of a kind that keep her eyes lit and full of interest and expectancy. Her speech is as careless as her carriage is precise. So we have a little sense of the complicated nature of who Mama is. Mama's carrying a plant. We'll come to find out that plant is an important symbol in the play. Mama, Ruth, and Benita then have a conversation. They converse about the liquor store, about their dreams, about what Ruth can't give Walter anymore. Her love is just not enough. Her love is foundational, but he needs more. He needs his pride. He needs more power. He needs more money. He needs to be a provider for his family. They start talking about the money again on page 511, and Mama says in the middle of page 511, some of it got to be put away for Benita and her school, and ain't nothing going to touch that part of it, nothing. Been thinking that we maybe could meet the notes on a little old 2-story somewhere, with a yard where Travis could play in the summertime, if we use part of the insurance for a down payment and everybody kind of pitch in. And so Mama and Ruth both want this. They want to move. They want Big Walter to have used that check to provide them stability. That's what they've been looking for. Somewhere stable, some home that they can call their own, that they don't just have to keep paying rent on. As we kind of move forward, we get more sense of who Big Walter is at the top of page 512. And another small piece that is rarely brought up, if any time in the rest of the play, but I think it's important and relevant to an understanding of Mama and Big Walter. Big Walter being Walter's father again. And Big Walter and Mama had a little son who died when he was a baby. Big Walter would come in here some nights back then, this is the top of page 512, and slump down on that couch there and just look at the rug. And then, Lord, when I lost that baby, little Claude, I almost thought I was going to lose Big Walter too. Oh, that man grieved his self. He was one man to love his children. And Mama says later, God knows there was plenty wrong with Walter Younger, hard-headed, mean, kind of wild with women, but he sure loved his children, always wanted them to have something, be something. He just couldn't never catch up with his dreams. So this idea of stubbornness, of what Walter wants, of what Benny wants, come from both their mom and their dad, and we get a sense of Big Walter, even though he's dead and not part of the play. Benita is trying to find herself, and we get this on page 513, where she talks about her guitar lessons that she's about to go take. And we find out she'd been experimenting with photography, with riding horses. All of these things certainly have cost money, and Benita is trying to express herself. She's a young college student looking for something in life, looking for who she is. She knows she wants to be a doctor, but she also is looking for a sense of herself. As we continue on in the scene, they talk a little bit about George, who is one of the boyfriends of Benita. We're going to learn a little bit about him later in the play. He's very wealthy. He's in a fraternity. They met at college. But Benita knows that he's shallow. And Ruth and Mama really are pushing for her to get with him because of the money. Of course, that would be great to have that type of money and power in their side of the family. But Benita says on page 514, I couldn't ever really be serious about George. He's so shallow. And she says later, you wouldn't even begin to understand. So that's what we understand about Benita right now and George's relationship. But we will meet George later. Then the scene ends with a very interesting, I would say, confrontation of a small confrontation between Benita and Mama. And as many young college students do, they start questioning everything, not just themselves, not just the shallowness of people who don't think or aren't intellectuals, but they're questioning the nature of the universe. And at this moment, Benita is questioning God. And on page 515 in the middle, Benita says, after Mama says, course you're going to be a doctor, honey, God willing. Benita says, God hasn't got a thing to do with it. Benita, that just wasn't necessary. Well, neither is God. I get sick of hearing about God. And Mama is very God-fearing. She's faithful, and that's something that she's not going to have in her house. Later, Benita says, God is just one idea I don't accept. It's not important. I am not going out and be immoral or commit crimes because I don't believe in God. It's just that I got tired of him getting credit for all the things the human race achieves. And what does Mama do? She slaps her. So we see in this confrontation the power of Mama. Of course, she gets what she wants in her own home, but also Benny pushing against her. And Benny's notion of doctors being able to heal on their own without God is something, and the nature of healing and the nature of faith are both themes that we'll confront throughout the text. This scene ends with Ruth quietly slipping to the floor. So she's fainted, and we wonder why. She has talked about being tired, but we'll find out later why she's fainted at the end of this scene. So anyway, that's just a little introduction with some what I thought were important quotes in the play. And again, as you listen and to this lecture, as you read through the play, as you think about it, let me know if you have any questions. You can always email. You can ask questions in your journal. And I hope to see you guys at an office hour. You could always pop into an office hour and we can talk on Monday, Wednesday from 4 to 6. So thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.